Hi, how are you doing? I'm doing fantastic. Okay. Everything good? All right. Okay. Hi everybody, how you doing? Techie 101 here to review One Piece chapter 1118, titled Being Free. I'm not gonna miss anything this time. I'm telling you what, last chapter, I missed Geen and Krieg and Pearl. I'm not gonna miss a single background character. You have my word, all right. Starting off with the cover page, Yamato, front and center, in the foreground, leaving the flower capital, finally, beginning the epic adventure around Wano, enjoying the bento box. And in the background we have people, hold on, zoom! Who's in the background? I think Urishima's back there, actually. I think the Yokozuna, the sumo wrestler dude's in the background. Maybe Osaru's in the background and some other people from Wano. I don't know who's all back there, but some people are back there. Okay, all right. It turns out one of those people was Captain Kuro the entire time. Man, this is a short chapter. It's only 13 pages, all things considered. So not a really, well... It's a huge chapter for what happens at the end. That is something rather divisive. Maybe Oda was like drawing the chapter and he was getting to that point at the end and he was like, you know what? This is gonna cause some people to have some opinions on things. So I'm just gonna end the chapter there. We'll just call it to be continued right there and wait for the rest of this to happen later. I don't know. All right, so the chapter continues right where we left off with Top Man Warkery, the Minister of Justice, delivering harsh justice. You know how each of the Marines have their different sense of justice? You know, like absolute justice or moral justice or unclear justice. Top Man is bore justice. So he just rushed right into the Iron Giant and just knocked it over, and I guess it was pretty close to the shore. I thought it was like closer inland. You know, I thought it was like in that junk heap that was near the center of the island, but I guess it was either very close to the beach or Top Man just hit it so damn hard it flew all the way to the beach. Because it is now right next to like where all the Marine battleships are like bombarding the island, right? And to the point where when the Iron Giant gets knocked over, the Marines are like rushing out of their ships like, oh, abandoned ship, it's gonna land right on us. What is that thing? It's some kind of Iron Giant. Well, like that movie from the 90s. I like that movie. I hope they never make a sequel. It was perfect the way it was. Oh, God! You know, so, yeah, it falls backwards. It's important to mention just the sheer size of this thing, okay? Like, you know, scale in One Piece is already ridiculous, but we now know from a little handy tidbit that we got a few chapters ago that the standard Marine battleship is about 60 meters tall, and those are the big battleships because not every one of the Marine ships that came for this Buster Call operation was all the same size. We saw some of them that were smaller, like support vessels, but the battleships, the big battleships, are 60 meters tall. And when we see the Iron Giant fall backwards into the water, there's like one of these ships is like, I think, smaller than its head, okay, or roughly the same size of this thing's head. So this thing is huge, all right? It probably even puts like Vega Force 1 to shame. Vega Force 1 was able to like pick up the Sunny, which is already a big vessel, with two hands. The Iron Giant could probably pick up the Thousand Sunny with like two fingers, you know, given the scale of this thing, right? Anyway, as it's getting knocked into the ocean, we do see the distribution Den Mushi, the Twitch streaming Den Mushi. Somewhere inside of it, it's not really clear if it's in its head or if it's in its chest cavity or something, but we see it in there, and we see it knock over, and it's like, you know, the transmission is like all garbled, like, but there are a couple of words that do get like delivered before the transmission goes dead again, and and their name was. So if that is, I'm a little confused on exactly if that is the direct continuation of the last chapter. I don't believe it is. I think it was the message ended, skipped some parts, then we get this, and then it gets skipped again. So the direction this would go is Vegapunk last chapter had the last message of for the D clan. You know, he's just like, and now a message for everyone that bears the D in your name. Among you there is much. and their name was, and then that's it. Maybe it was something like that. So in any case, the Vegapunk, I guess, was setting up something like, among you there is a remarkable person, or among you there is an evil person, or among you there is someone that does not bear the will of Joy Boy, and their name was... So, you know, a lot of people have been thinking that this probably either involves directly referencing Luffy as the sun god, because that's like the actual reincarnation of Joy Boy in terms of the devil fruit that Joy Boy had, or it's referencing Blackbeard. Because remember what Whitebeard said to Blackbeard, you know, because he has the D in his name too, Marshall D. Teach. But as Whitebeard was even reminiscing about this in the last word, this also might tie back to what Roger told Whitebeard in their last meeting. You know, where it's like, Whitebeard, you want me to tell you how to get to Laughtail? I can tell you. And Whitebeard's like, nah, I don't really have any interest in that place. However, it is something weird, though. That D that keeps popping up all over the world, you know? I have a guy on my crew, Marshall D. Teach, he's got it. I keep running into people with the D in their name. What the hell does that mean? And then Roger told him, because he learned about it at Laptow, he's like, I could tell you that then, matey. And so Roger tells Whitebeard about it, and after reminiscing on that right before he's about to die, Whitebeard looks down at Blackbeard and is like, it's not you, Teach. He's not waiting for you. So... there's something going on here where, yes, all the members of the D-Clan are reaching for freedom in some capacity. You know, Garp has his freedom. You know, I don't want to be an admiral. I'm going to be a vice admiral, but I'm still going to be in the Marines. Luffy is free in the sense of, like, I want to go on a great adventure and make a bunch of friends, and maybe his ultimate dream is to have the whole world be part of this big party. You know, that was a popular theory. That one might be Luffy's dream. Blackbeard's is more about, like, chaos! We'll burn the government down and take over the world for pirates! You know, something along the lines of that. So, all freedom aspects, but different directions, certainly, and maybe the message that Vegapunk was trying to say, if it doesn't involve Luffy and the Sun God, it might involve Blackbeard trying to ruin their endeavors, or Blackbeard is not truly a member of the D-Clan in the sense that he carries on the will of Joy Boy, or maybe there was a different part of the D-Clan back in the day. Like, let's assume Rox and Blackbeard are related. They could very well be father and son. Well, there might be a member of like their family way back in the Void Century that was like the outlier of the Will of D. You know, like they were the members of the Will of D that were like, no, we're gonna use the ancient weapons to rule the world, you know, something like that. And so maybe Joy Boy was like, nah, I mean, we might have to use the ancient weapons to end the war, but let's not use them to take over the world. And that was like Rox and Teach's ancestor was like, no, let's do it, we can rule everything. You know what I mean? And then it continued on in the Will of D, but it got lost over the centuries. That's like, hey, this branch of the Will of D is a little bit more extreme and intense and evil than the others that Joy Boy really wanted to, you know, enshrine. Then again, though, we don't even really know, because Joy Boy did kind of use the ancient weapons too, so we don't really know what the alignment on any of these characters were back in the day, right? So that's one of the points we're going to get here. At any rate, that's the remaining part of the message. That's all we get. As the Iron Giant sinks below the waves, it thinks to itself. And this is something, like, this thing is clearly very sentient and autonomous. Like, it's aware of itself. Like, because up until now, maybe it's just groggy for waking up after 200 years of being in a junkyard, but it was just like, Joy Boy, I hear you, I will find you. You know, it was kind of very jarring. Here, it's having a very cohesive train of thoughts where it's like, where are you? Where did you go, Joy Boy? I wanted our paths to cross again. You were right here, weren't you? How strange. How very strange. Like, there's a sense of, like, you know, like regret, remorse, even like sadness of like, now it's just sinking to the bottom of the ocean. It's like, where were you? I wanted to see you again, you know? And also keep in mind, right at this moment, Luffy is not in Gear 5 anymore. Luffy went out of Gear 5 back into his base form, so he's running with the Giants. So maybe it's like literally like when Luffy is in Gear 5, it's putting out like a pulse or like a beacon of like, that's Joy Boy over there, must find Joy Boy. And then Luffy goes out of Gear 5 and is like, what? Where did you go, Joy Boy? It's been so long. I just wanted a hug. And then it gets knocked over by a giant boar into the ocean. So I feel bad for the Iron Giant, you know what I mean? But hey, you know what? That leads to a whole other question. Like, if these things were mass-produced during the Void Century, these things are, like, once again, aware of themselves. They are autonomous. They are sentient, all right? So was there just one Iron Giant? I don't think there was. I think there was, like, an army, kind of similar to maybe the automata that are up on the moon. The automata kind of, I think, are sentient as well. We didn't really get a feel for the automata that were on the moon. The ones that came from the Blue Sea, from Karakuri Island, that the old dude on that island created, right? I think it was named like Dr. Tsurugi or something. He made those 4 automata that went up and like met Eneru on his adventure. Those were sentient, but I think the ones on the moon were as well. They looked exactly the same. Dr. Tsurugi probably just based them off that design. So yeah, they had an army of like sentient giant robots. Like giant robots, okay? There's also a popular theory that, you know, Joy Boy's crew is a reflection of Luffy's crew. Or rather, I guess Luffy's crew would be the reflection of Joy Boy's, because Joy Boy's was first. So, like, this Iron Giant is the Frankie of the Joy Boy crew. Zunisha was the Chopper of the Joy Boy crew. And Toki would have been, like, the Nami. You know what I mean? Like, so there's, like, parallels in that regard, which I would have been okay with that as well. It's just, I think there was more than one Iron Giant. I think there were multiple Iron Giants that were made, right? And how the hell do you get them with a consciousness in there? Like, that, so many questions about the Void Century, right? So, Giant is sinking to the bottom of the ocean. We have the giant form of Top Man in his Hoki and his giant boar form looming over the shore of the island, and the Marines are looking up and just like, what is that thing? These poor Marines. You know, some of these Marines have had to have died from a heart attack or like something at this point, right? Like, this is too much. Like, even for the life of a Marine and being sent off to a Buster Call at Egghead, you know, some of them are just like, this is too much, guys. I'm done. I'm done. You know what? I'm going inside. Just wake me when the world stops ending. If not, I'm dead. Who cares? You know? Okay. We cut around the world very briefly. We don't really see a bunch of different locations. We see one previously identified location where everyone just notices that, you know, the signal dies and just like, oh, it was cut off mid-sentence. Did something go wrong? Well, wait a minute. Now that we think about it, this was like Vegapunk's kill switch. So who killed Vegapunk in the first place, right? Then we cut over to Alabasta, but not in Alubarna. This is probably in Yuba. Yuba was the desert oasis where Koza and his father Toto were living, and they kind of rebuilt it after the events of the arc. We also see some former members of the Alabasta Revolution that Koza headed up. Like, we see that little kid there. There was also that big dude. Remember that big dude that like had a really messed up like scar? Like he was missing an arm and like a good chunk of his body was taken off. And there was that moment where that kid went up to Koza and was like, I want to join the revolution. And Koza's like, do you know what it really means to join this fight, kid? And he points to this guy and he's just like this mangled like cannon wound that he got right here. And he's like, that's what it means. He took a shot for me. That's what you got to do to join, right? So, you know, they're not that kind of lifestyle anymore. Koza's there. He's got a cool scar and his sunglasses. Toto is there as well. I was looking for Goro, I think his name was. That is Koza's uncle that heads up the hot spring that is connected to Alabasta, connected to Yuba, and that's where Geratsu is working as the front receptionist for the bathhouse and the like the hot spring, you know, resort and everything like that. It would have been awesome if like Geratsu was in the background of that, and he's just like, what? Vegapunk? Who's that? What? You know? So they're just like, you know, well, wait a minute. Well, Luffy, Straw Hat Luffy, he was the one that captured Vegapunk, so he was the one that must have killed him, right? That the government wouldn't kill their own scientists. That just makes zero sense, right? We also get Whiskey Peak in a tiny little panel. Whiskey Peak is, of course, the town on Cactus Island. It was the first island that the Straw Hats arrived at the Grand Line way back at like chapter 105 or something. And we actually see Mr. Nine and Miss Monday, although except it's not Miss Monday anymore, it's Mrs. Monday, because Mr. Nine and Miss Monday got married and they have a kid. Mr. Nine had a happy ending. You know, it's just because those were like the only two left in that island. You know, like Vivi left. Igaram apparently died after the events of that. You know, all the other bounty hunters were killed. Zoro cut down so many bounty hunters that night. So Mr. Nine and Miss Monday just wake up in a field of corpses and just like, oh, okay, the Strats are gone. You know, Mr. Nine does help Vivi to escape. Remember that. That did happen. But yeah, they just stayed in Whiskey Peak, and I guess they had some drinks one night, and they're like, well, I've always kind of liked you. And Miss Monday's like, okay. And then they got together, and they have a baby. And it's, I don't know the name of the baby, but they have one. They have a kid, so there you go. They're there, and they're like, oh, the world government would never kill Vegapunk, you know, just because he broke a few laws. All right, that is an example of how the civilians, like a normal civilian, views the government. They're like, oh, so what if Vegapunk broke a few laws about researching some void century? What does that matter? He's the greatest scientist in the world. They wouldn't kill him for that. Oh, that just goes to show how people in the One Piece world don't understand how the corruption goes with this. Then again, keep in mind, like, most of the normal civilians probably don't think about, like, the world government that much, you know? They're just working on their own little island. This guy actually on Whiskey Peak next to Mr. Nine and Mrs. Monday looks like a baker. He looks like your average run-of-the-mill baker. So what does he have to do? It's like occasionally he just works. He's got to pay his taxes to the government every now and then. But beyond that, he's probably not sitting around being like, the government is ruled by a bunch of yokai demons. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's like, yeah, it's just like, oh, no, the government. They wouldn't kill Vegapunk. Why would they do that? We see Dressrosa in one panel. We see Rebecca and Leo. Because of the kind of naive nature of the Tontada to just kind of believe whatever they're told, Leo is still convinced, like, oh, so it must have been Luffy that killed Vegapunk. There's no other there's no other explanation. The transmission ended, and Luffy must have killed him. And then Rebecca is like giving a really annoyed face, like, Leo, shut up. No, Leo, it's great, but no, you be quiet. Luffy didn't kill Vegapunk. You know, there's some other explanation here, right? Now we cut back to Egghead, where the Gorosei are now directly communicating with York. I'm not really sure if this is telepathy at this point, because York has the radio, but the Gorosei don't. So I guess this is telepathy directly communicating with York. Can they telepathically communicate with anybody or just themselves? I'm actually kind of curious, or it actually kind of seems like it is a transmission, so I'm not really sure how this is working. But at any rate, it doesn't matter. Maybe their voices can be turned into radio waves. At whatever case, they're communicating with York, who's still in the lab, and is like, York, how many of the Vegapunks are still alive? And York is like, huh? Oh, okay, let me do a quick search. So she can figure out how many Vegapunks are currently interfacing with Punk Records, and she has determined there are 2 Vegapunks left. Lilith and Atlas, the only ones still communicating with the records. Wait a minute, no. Dear God, no! Atlas and Lilith? No! What happened to Edison? No! Damn it! Edison shouldn't be dead. There's still hope. There's still hope, because York was definitely able to not communicate with Punk Records. This is definitely something you can turn off. Maybe Edison was just, he's hiding his nen or something. Maybe he turned off his chakra. Maybe Edison's just unconscious. Maybe Edison's still alive. We can still salvage this guy. It's okay. Why did it have to be Edison? Why couldn't it have been Atlas? No one cares about Atlas but Edison. He was a little robot guy. His head was cool. He could fly around with a little jetpack. Alright, can we all have a moment of fucking silence here, please? Please, just a moment of silence. Alright, for our little robot buddy. It could have been Atlas. Alright, so anyway... I actually shed a tear. Lilith is still alive, though, so thank God for that. But anyway, they're like, oh, okay, well, we only need 1 Vegapunk. We only need York left for that. You know, but she also mentions that apparently Punk Records is set up and programmed to keep expanding even after the Stella's termination. So this brings up so many logistical questions about, like, death in One Piece, because up until now, the way that we understood this is if you die, your devil fruit gets reincarnated, right? That's how it works. Well, the effects of the brain fruit are still in effect, even though Vegapunk's body As in, like, everything except his brain. Like, his heart was pierced. His body was, like, he's dead. His body is dead right now, for what I'm assuming, right? But the brain is still alive, because it's in that big tank, and being fed, like, you know, IV fluid and shit, or whatever goo is in that tank or something, right? So, like... I guess maybe Vegapunk in his research figured out, like, okay, it's the brain. The brain, as long as the brain is still alive, then you're still alive. Because I think the way it works even now is you can't be, like, classified as officially dead until your brain, like, is effectively gone, right? I mean, I don't know. I think there's a few different factors there. Because, like, you know, there's been cases where your heart has stopped beating and you can revive somebody, right? You're not dead until, you know, if you can bring back the heart and stuff like that. So in the One Piece world, it might be like, and there's souls as well. So you don't tell me. Maybe the soul is connected to the brain. But Vegapunk's brain is still being alive. So it's still, you know, going. And so it can grow, and the brain fruit is still there. So they're like, okay, I guess we'll have to focus on that then. We'll get rid of Lilith and Atlas, and then we can only have York that will feed into Punk Records, and then we'll have access to all that information that York can draw from Punk Records all for ourselves. Okay, so that's the new goal of the Gorosei, and we see Top Man, we see Saturn, and we see Mars in their yokai forms all getting ready to, you know, eliminate Atlas and Lilith. We don't see Peter. I don't think we see Peter. And then we also have Venus-Juro, Ethan. He's still up in the Labo phase. We don't get any updates with that on this chapter. And we see Nami later, but we don't see what's up with Jinbei, Zoro, and fighting against Ethan. But yeah, and then Peter is also MIA, it seems. We cut back to the evacuation site where the Elbaf ship, it used to be called the Great Eric, was the name of it way back in the day. I don't know if it's still called that, because that was a ship they had over 100 years ago. Even if this is kind of the same ship, it's kind of a ship of Theseus thing. Maybe it's been, you know, fixed up since then. They also reattached the figurehead. I missed that last chapter. So there was the scene when Ethan sliced part of the figurehead and then the mast off, and they did paste and, like, you know, secure that back together. So the ship is moving out of the dock. Like, it is just steamrolling over all the marine ships that are in the water. Just boom, you know, slamming through that. And then Dorian, Broggy, and Luffy are approaching, and Dorian and Broggy are like, we're hopping on! And they just jump on the back of the ship. Luffy lands on the deck. Dory and Broggy are, like, holding on to the back of the ship, but they'll, like, climb in a second. Sanji, Atlas, Kuma, Bonney, they all made it on the deck of the ship there. And they're all happy, you know, and so Sanji's there like, Luffy, come on. And Bonnie's like, Luffy, you made it. And Luffy's like, yeah, I'm here. Giant ship. This is awesome. Wow. Where's Usopp? He would love this. And so it's like, they're still up in the Labo phase. We still gotta, you know, pick them up. They're still coming down. It's like, all right. Now, the Marines, even despite this, I think the morale boost from the Vice Admirals attacking the Giants got the Marines going, because they were like, hey, even though they have a giant ship, we have all these battleships we brought. We have like 100 battleships we brought from HQ. We can take them down. I don't know how many have been destroyed at this point. Quite a few. Quite a few. I would say at least half of these battleships have been destroyed or rendered inoperable from all the nonsense that's been going on at Egghead. Speaking of the Vice Admirals, Bonnie has used her ability of the Toshi Toshi no Mi to reduce Doll and Bluegrass, and remember Bluegrass was riding on that giant mechanical giraffe, all into children. So Bonnie's on the ship holding a gun, and she's just like, ha 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 ha, you know, what are you gonna do now, Marines? Are you gonna attack us now? And then Doll and Bluegrass are like, darn it! That power is broken as hell! Oh, you don't even know! You don't even know yet how broken this power is. We're not even at the end of the chapter yet, right? So, yeah, Doll and Bluegrass cannot effectively do anything now. It is really funny that the giraffe, the robot giraffe, got turned into a child, and it's still a robot. And this also goes the idea that, like, when Jinbei gets turned into a kid with the Toshi Toshi no Mi, he still has his scars, you know? Like, he didn't have his scars as a kid, but, you know, he does still have them now. Same thing with, like, if Shanks Vegapunks got turned into a kid by the power of Bonnie's fruit, it's not like he would regrow an arm. He would still not have an arm. This kind of explains that any kind of attachment or modification goes back to the form of a child with you or ages with you, depending on whatever she's doing with her power. Does it make a lot of sense? Not really. And as Bluegrass says here, it's like this ability is incredible. It's broken as hell. It's like, yeah, it sure is. It sure is. It also reminds me of, like, there was a trend for a while where, like, if you had a popular cartoon series, there was always a spin-off series that was, like, with little baby versions of those characters. Like Scooby-Doo, right? So there was Scooby-Doo, and then, like, let's have a version of like, the baby version of Scooby-Doo, and they had a pup named Scooby-Doo. Let's have baby versions of Looney Tunes. Let's have baby versions of the Flintstones. This was a thing in the 90s. I think it was because of Rugrats. I think Rugrats was really popular in the early 90s, like Nickelodeon and stuff like that, and they were like, let's do that with all these other popular cartoons. Like, there was a baby Tom and Jerry, I think. It's just like, it was getting excessive, okay? But anyway, yeah, that's what happens there. So the Vice Admirals can't really do anything against the pirates because they're children for right now. You know, Oimo and Kashi are there. Kashi gets back up after being, like, punched out by Doll. Luffy goes over, like, Oimo, Kashi, it's been forever. How you been? And he's like, what? Oh, hey, Straw Hat. Yeah, we're doing all right. How you doing? All right, cool. So, Sanji is now communicating with Nami up in the Labo phase, while Bonnie is holding off all the Vice Admirals. Kuma is there as well with Atlas. And Nami's up there and just like, yeah, we were able to get the clouds extended because of Edison. Thank you, Edison. Thank you. Can we have another moment of silence for Edison, please? Can we have, like, a JoJo ending for Edison where he just appears in the sky with thumbs up? Yep. Anyway, okay, so they're like, yeah, we're ready to go. We might need you guys to help us, though, because we're gonna, like, fall from the sky. You guys might need to help, like, catch us or clear a path so we don't land wrong. Sanji is just like, oh, don't worry. You and Robin and Lilith are my top priorities. Do not worry about this, Nami. I will make sure you are safe. And then Usopp's on the background of the line, just like, hey, you know, there's other people here too, Sanji, come on. And just like, Sanji's like, no, do not worry. I will make sure. Even if I have to sacrifice my life, Usopp's, and Brooks, Nami and Lilith and Robin will be safe. So that's typical Sanji being Sanji. Frankie's in the background just like, oh, don't worry about it, Sanji. If the ship falls and gets a little damaged, I could fix that up right quick. It's all good. So Frankie's got this. And then we have Mars, though, coming in from the mainland. So the Great Eric is sailing away from Egghead, but it's not far enough out yet. And also, yeah, the Gorosei, at least a few of them, are capable of flight. So, well, wait, hold on a minute. I don't know. I think Mars is the only one really capable of flight. Although, it's One Piece. You don't know. Like, Saturn could take his spider legs and, like, start spinning them like a helicopter, and Saturn is, like, flying through the sky like Gumu Gumu no UFO. Maybe he could do that. I think any of the Gorosei might be capable of flight if Oda really wants them to be. You know what I mean? I'm sure even like Ethan, at the very least, they can use like Skywalk or like Geppo. So they could follow them for a while out in the ocean, right? And the ocean might not even weaken them. That's the thing. Like, knocking a Gorosei into the ocean seems like an easy way to solve this problem. That might not even work. They might not even be Devil Fruit abilities. You knock them into the ocean, they might just get right the hell out and be like, whoa, okay, didn't expect that. That's not good, right? So it is an issue. Like, how are we going to deal with the Gorosei, especially the one that's a giant cursed bird that could shoot lasers? So it's flying towards them pretty fast. Then we have in the depths of the Great Eric of the ship, we have Luffy, who found the kitchen pretty quickly. He's like, oh, Oimo, Kashi, that's great. Where is the kitchen? It's like, oh, down the stairs to the left. Okay, thank you. Luffy runs down. He finds it. There's an Elbaf chef down there, and he's just like, oh, you must be Straw Hat Luffy. Okay, you're bouncing. All right, you're eating the food. All right. The captain's told me that you eat a lot of food, so I prepared a lot of, you know, full-course meals. Didn't expect to serve them all at once, but, all right, man, yeah, your appetite is immense. So, props to Dorian Bragi for planning that ahead of time. Like, oh, this kid, he's got the appetite of a giant. You're gonna want to make a lot of food, right? And so the giant chef is like, oh, man, he likes my food. I'm proud of that. I like that giant chef. I hope we learn about his name and his backstory, and I hope he doesn't die. All right. So Luffy is just, devouring this plate of giant mutton. Okay, he's in heaven right now, right? He's just going crazy with it, all right? Luffy is effectively invincible as long as he has enough food to sustain himself, because this is like the 3rd time this has happened, maybe 4th time during this arc, where he's gone gear 5. Like, this has been a long, extended battle, but I like how Oda is consistent with, like, all right, gear 5 doesn't last forever. He has to stop periodically and eat, right? Like, he had to recharge initially with the lunch that they had after they defeated the Seraphim, and then he went to gear 5 against Kizaru, and then he went out of gear 5, and then somebody, maybe Augur, teleported him over to the vending machine so he could get more food, and so he got food there, and then he had to fight again, and then it wore off again, and he had to have the fermented shark to power him back up, and then it wore off again, and now he's getting more food. So you just keep giving Luffy food. He's like a perpetual motion machine. He just keeps going with gear 5 as long as he has enough food. I guess it's not perpetual motion because the food is the fuel, but whatever. Giant Marcus Mars Itsumade uses an energy beam. 3 giants take their shields and, like, protect the little ones. Giant Elbaf shields. Boom! And they block this giant energy beam, but not completely. Some of the ship still catches on fire. Not the sails yet, but the front of the ship is kind of catching on fire. They're still like, oh, we gotta put out the fire. Bjorn! Sig! Put out the fires! Sig, maybe short for Sigvaldi. I'm so excited we're getting Viking names. Oh, Bjorn, Sigvaldi, put out the flames. Thorfinn, get over here. I want a character to be named Thorfinn. Just make a character named Thorfinn. Doesn't have to look like Thorfinn, but just make a character named Thorfinn, please. Be great. All right, so then, the Marines are there, like, what's that thing? It's a giant bird monster. They're completely out of the loop here, so whatever. One of the giants is, like, lit on fire, and he, like, falls down. He's like, oh, it's hot, hot. And then, like, it's funny because, like, it's the middle of an emergency, I get it, but, like, Atlas is in the background with Bonney. Like, we need to move Vegapunk's body and Kuma away from here because it is now lit on fire, but it's like one of the giants fell down next to them on fire, like, oh god, fire, it burns, help me please, and like we need to get Vegapunk and Kuma out of here. It's like, oh god, please help me. Yeah, we gotta move them, we don't want them to catch on fire, right? It's like, put me out please, someone grab some water. Tori and Bragi are there, like, well, I guess there's no ignoring these monsters, they can fly, I guess they could chase us to the ends of the earth. And then Mars is all creepy in his Itsumade form, and he's like, not a single one of you will be permitted to escape. It's like, oh no, and Frankie's there looking up, and then all of a sudden, massive earthquake, like the entire waters begin to just undulate. Undulating like you've never seen before. So much undulation, it makes other undulations seem like not undulation. And then, boom, we have the theme of the Gear 5 of Nika. Don tada tada tada, don tada tada. We got the drum beat going, and everybody's being bounced around. It's almost like the ocean itself is becoming rubbery. I don't know if Luffy's doing that or if that's just the effects of the fruit or something, but that's pretty cool because it really looks like the entire ocean is like a bounce house now. But then we have Luffy appearing in Gear 5, and he's like, Bonney! And he's like, whoa, wow, because this is like, I think the first time Bonney is seeing Luffy's form like up close. She's seen it before on the island when he went to Gear 5 and was like bouncing around and stuff, but like Luffy's like right in front of her right now, and Bonnie's like, whoa, sun god Nika! My dad prayed to you all the time. Nice to meet you, I guess, finally. And so, and then once again, Luffy has no idea. Like, I don't know who this Nika person is. I don't know what that is. I'm Luffy. Nice to meet you. You already know me. And then all the giants start dancing, too. It's like, oh, we gotta put out these fires. A lot of our crew are burning right now, but we gotta dance, And so Luffy's bouncing around. He's like, this is awesome. Hey, Bonney, why don't you help me defeat these guys? Why don't we, go into this form together and then punch them out? And then Bonney is just like, what are you talking about? I can't do that. I can't turn into this form. And Luffy's like, oh, sure you can. I don't know how your power works, but it could do everything else, so it could probably do this. And Bonney is like, okay, I'll try, I guess. And she remembers back when she met Luffy at the beginning of Egghead, where she questioned Luffy about his wanted poster. Like, hey, Luffy, your wanted poster has, like, you have white hair now. I thought you dyed your hair or something. And Luffy said, oh, no, that's the form I'm in when I'm the most free. And he, like, struck the pose, right? And so Bonnie's like, okay, give me a future where I am the most free. And then final double-page spread, short chapter, only 13 pages, Bonney transforms into Gear 5th. Or maybe not Gear 5th, but Bonney transforms into Sun God Nika in the same form that Luffy is. The same exact style of hair, the ribbon. They both get, like, you know, they basically, actually, it's funny, both of them lose, I didn't realize this, both of them lose the Vegapunk outfit, the Egghead outfit, when they go into this form. Luffy goes back into his regular shorts. I don't even know if Luffy's wearing his vest. I don't think he is. Luffy just has his shorts on. This was always the case. I'm just noticing it now. But Bonney was wearing the Vegapunk, like the Egghead outfit, and now she's just wearing like a tank top and like shorts, and when she goes into the form or whatever. So I guess that doesn't apply. And like every other devil fruit, when they turn, their clothes change with them, but in this case I guess it doesn't apply. But yeah, Bonney and Luffy are both in the Sun God form. We see a flashback of Kuma. Kuma's just laying off to the side. We don't even know what's going on in him, but we were having a flashback to like, hey, Ginny, I will raise your child. I will make sure to raise her well. And then we have Bonney going into the Sun God form, and they're like, oh, and then the giants are like, whoa, there's two Nikas. What's going on here, right? Mars is watching this and just not saying anything, just like ellipses, like, what the hell is going on here? Mars is up there like, I don't even know what's going on anymore in this series. What's happening? Luffy's like, let's go, Bonney, let's do this. And she's like, yeah. And she like strikes like a smile, like everything's gonna be okay. Like, yeah, Luffy, let's go. And then the Gorosei are rushing around. Oh, we see Peter here. It's like kind of off to the side. We see Peter in the sandworm form. I sense something is amiss. We must hurry. So I don't know where they're heading. If they're heading towards... Well, I guess they are heading toward the evac site because that's where Atlas is, and they are trying to eliminate Atlas. Lilith is still up in the labo phase. So yeah, they are heading to that site as well. Last scene, last panel, we have the Iron Giant still sinking, but being like, there you are. I sense you. So because not just Luffy now, but also Luffy and Bonney are in the Sun God form, the energy they're outputting is doubled probably, and now the giant is like powering up again, like, oh, I see you, I sense you. So there's probably gonna be some kind of like, you know, retro booster or some kind of like energy jetpack or something that the Iron Giant's gonna like, you know, fire, shoot itself out of the water and like go to help the Straw. It's like the Iron Giant basically has to hold back the Gorosei for them to get away, because Luffy and Bonney's forms, whatever else you want to say about them, they're not going to last forever, all right? Luffy has a set amount of time. Bonney's timeline on this is probably even shorter than Luffy's, so the Iron Giant's probably going to pop in and like fight against the Gorosei now that, because it didn't even have, like, its power was like very low initially, like it was at 0% charge for like 200 years. And then Luffy went into Gear 5th a couple times and gave it a little bit of a charge, but then he went out of Gear 5th and it started to lose its charge again, got knocked into the water. Now it's a double charge that's going, so maybe it'll get the battery moving long enough to fight off the Gorosei or some, I don't know. But that's not the big deal. That's the end of the chapter. No break next week. So, final thoughts. Bonney being able to just go into this form. Alright. Well, her ability has always been, and we've seen it multiple times in this arc, her access to parallel versions of events. Like, that is what her powers are. She has a technique called Distorted Future. And she's used it enough times now that we can kind of get the feel for what this is. It's an ability. I mean, her fruit always had to deal with like time and age and different like possible futures. So this, I guess, is Bonney accessing a future where she ate the Hito Hito no Mi model sun god and was able to achieve this form. Now, you might say, well, that's incredibly broken. You're right. It is. And even Bluegrass in this chapter says as much. Like, this is a really fantastic ability. This is a really broken power. If she can just do this, all right? Now, can't probably keep this up for very long, and after she goes out of this form, I don't think she can go right back into it, because that would be really broken if she, like, you know, because it's always been temporary. We've always seen that with Bonnie's power. So she goes into this form, at least the distorted futures are always temporary, so she goes into that form, goes back into her normal form, and she'll be like, oh, okay, I'll just go back into the future where I'm free again. Oh, it's not working this time. Yeah, I don't think she could just keep going with it, like without, you know, a certain period of rest. But even so, still, yes, if she is able to access any parallel dimension where she ate any devil fruit, well, yeah, then she kind of has like William's fruit from D&D, where she can just, like the roulette no me, except she can kind of control it, like at any given time. Like, it really does seem like a devil fruit somebody would come up with, like a really broken OC character in like a fan fiction somewhere. Like, Bonney has a devil fruit that allows her to access any other devil fruit temporarily. Like, could Bonney just be like, give me a future where I'm a giraffe, and then she gets the future where she ate Kaku's zone, or like, give me a future where I can make explosions, and then has Mr. Five's bomb fruit. Like, give me a future where I become a jacket, and then she has the jacket zone. No, jacket fruit, not jacket zone. But like, oh my god, if that is the case, it's kind of established. Like, I don't think it's just now. Maybe she has to see the power for herself, because I think most of her fruit involves her own mental state at the time, and it was even stated as much, like when she was trying to attack Saturn, it got weaker, and that was because she was like, her belief in the sun god was waning, because it's like, oh, the sun god's not real, the sun god's not going to come here and save us, and then she saw Luffy, and her faith in the sun god got re-energized, I guess, so to speak, and then she's like, oh, okay, the sun god does exist, all that stuff that Dad said about, you know, Nika and everything, that's real. Okay, I will become the sun god, and then she can, all right? What's the limit of this? I don't know if there is one, actually, at this point. What else? Oh, yeah, I was rewatching the scene with Vegapunk explaining what devil fruits are in the anime, where Vegapunk is like, you know, devil fruits are the collected desires of mankind. What if I was like this? What if I could be like that? That is what the powers of the devil fruits are. Human desire. You know, like he was explaining that, and it's like, well, that is kind of Bonney's fruit. That's kind of what Bonney does. Bonney desires like certain things, like give me a future where I'm a giant. Give me a future where I'm Nika. Give me a future where I'm like super buff and I can like punch things, you know what I mean? Like, that is what her power is, effectively. So if it ties back into the multiple dimensions and all the different devil fruits out there, I guess, yeah, there would be a version of reality, if it's really infinite possibilities, where Bonney consumed every possible devil fruit in every possible reality, if that's how infinity works. So she can just access all of those points, okay? Which also means there's other versions of Bonney that also could access other versions of, I have no idea. I'm not an I'm not a theoretical physicist. I don't know. But for the sake of this, she can at least just assume from this point going forward, Bonney can assume any form she wants. At least temporarily. Like, just, I'm assuming that from now on. Like, if Bonney's like, give me a future where I'm the greatest swordswoman in the world. Mihawk level Bonney! I mean, at this point, why not, right? Like, we've already established, like, you know how long it took Luffy to achieve this form? Luffy had to fight Kaido to achieve this form, and she can just do it now. So it's like, why couldn't she become, like now maybe she has to meet that person, like, head on, like, she has to meet Mihawk and be like, wow, you're a really strong swordsman. I can kind of see what you're capable of. Give me a future where I am you know? Now, okay, with the Gorosei, it might not work. If she's like, give me a future where I have the power of the Gorosei, maybe that won't work necessarily, because the Gorosei are so different and weird. You know, there's no version of reality, but if it's infinite reality, oh god, my brain hurts. I don't know. Or, you know what? It might not have anything to do with, like, parallel dimensions, and it might just all be in Bonnie's mind. It might just be literally, like, if Bonney believes in herself and has a strong enough imagination, she can go into whatever form she wants, okay? And when that imagination wanes, it gets weaker. It could literally be that simple. Now, that alone is broken in its own right, because it's like, oh, what if Bonney is God? You know, like, she turns into, like, a deity and just, I now eliminate all the Gorosei. You know, which, I mean, she kind of is a sun god right here, right? So there's definitely an upper limit with this. She can't just turn into an all-powerful deity and just wipe the floor with all 5 Gorosei with the snap of her fingers. She can't do that, so there is a limit there, but still, This needs to be explored and explained a little bit more, I would certainly say. But for right now, that's not important. For right now, I mean, it is still very important, but for right now, Luffy and Bonney are gonna fight the Gorosei together, are gonna fight Mars together, and the Iron Giant's probably gonna join in on this slobber knocker here. And that's going to be epic as hell to see, especially when the other Gorosei, when like Saturn, well, at least I think we only see Peter and Top Man heading toward the battle here in that last panel. So they show up and it's like, you know, I don't know, the Iron Giant shows up to wrestle with Top Man, and then Bonney takes care of Mars, and then Luffy fights against Peter. I don't know how that goes. And then they, you know, manage to kick them back long enough for the ship to get away. I don't know. But then Mars can just follow them again. So they really got to deal with Mars. They got to deal with the situation of the flying bird at the very least, you know? They got to clip some wings. But, yeah, that's chapter 1118. Pretty crazy finale, and a lot of people are going to be questioning this. So, yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Teching. Wait, hold on. All right, this will be Teching signing out. Later, everyone, and anyone. Did I miss anything? Did Arlong show up in the background? I don't think so. All right. Later. Shit.